Okay, so Adrian Middleton here again. What I'd like to talk to you about now is what is the action the department is seeking through the stop work order, and what does it practically mean for you? Okay, so at this point in time, this video is for people that have received a stop work order and they're kind of going, okay, why and what happens next? Okay, so if you've received a stop work order, the department has determined that either you have failed to maintain workers' compensation, meaning you don't have it, or the amount of workers' compensation that you do have is not sufficient. Okay, at that point in time, they've issued a stop work order. Now, it looks like a stop work order, and so it looks like a stop work order, and that's it. But what does that mean? Well, it means two things. So, one, they're saying you have to stop because you don't have enough workers' compensation or any workers' compensation. And so, you are at this moment a direct danger to the general welfare of the public because if someone gets injured on your job, they're not going to be covered. And that means the public may have to cover them. They're going to go to the emergency room, they're going to get care because the emergency room can't turn them away. And then that cost is going to be passed on to taxpayers. And so that's not particularly good. So that's one aspect of a stop work order. They're wanting you to stop so an injury doesn't occur. Now, they're also wanting you to stop because they want you to either come into compliance through some methodology. So whether it's filing of exemptions, whether it's getting a standalone policy, or whether you can obtain an employee leasing policy. So the stop work order is to stop you from allowing someone to be injured, but then to keep you stopped until you have coverage that is in compliance with the law and that will protect people or waive your ability to sue someone, which is the exemption, because they don't want homeowners and other business owners being sued by you because you either did not have workers' compensation or did not have enough, okay? So that's what a stop work order is. Now, the other part of the stop work order is what happens after a stop work order, okay? So you've gotten a stop work order, you now have been told you have to get workers' compensation, and you think, oh, well, that's it. I just need to get workers' comp and pay the $1,000 penalty assessment at the front end to get a stop work order release and come into compliance with some type of coverage. Well, that's true. But what the state is also going to ask you to do, because you've now been found to not have proper workers' compensation insurance, is they're going to ask you to look at your financial records. And they're going to say, we want to do a 2-year audit on you. And so we're talking about a full-on forensic audit of your finances to determine if you've paid the proper amount of workers' compensation that you should have, and if you did not have workers' compensation, if you're going to have to pay workers' compensation back to the state times 2. So that means that if you get a stop work order and you don't have the proper amount of workers' compensation, then you are going to have to pay back whatever you would have paid back on the free, open, voluntary market times 2. That's your penalty. Paying back 100% of what you would have paid if you had a policy and paying 100% more. And so and the reason the state does that is twofold. One, they're a self-funded agency, so they actually use these fines to pay for their staff, their overhead, everything. They don't take any monies from the state legislature or the general revenue fund. The other reason that they fine you is to deter you in their minds from you doing it again, okay? So pretty much what I'm trying to tell you is that in addition to a stop work order that will force you to come into compliance by obtaining the proper insurance or exempting yourself, you will also be audited for 2 years, and the penalties can range from $1,000 to into the millions. So it's very important to know what your records have within, and to also know that you're not required to turn over records, that there are alternative penalty methodologies, and I'll talk to you about that in the next video.